Today's episode is trivial, but I think this port town will bring a lot to my world and improve my kingdom. But hey, I have my progress to show. Like now, in this episode I focus on building the port town, with some buildings that are more decorative than useful. But in the next episode we have to build a large village with a farm and country houses. Maybe something about my current project. First of all, I took care of the area in the beginning to prepare it for the future construction, and it was a good idea to mark the place for the huts. Once that was done, I set about building a road between the castle and the town, which doesn't take much time, but in my opinion, the roads always add a lot to the life of the projects. It's time to take care of the houses and other important buildings in this town. So first I built a rough blueprint for a large warehouse, which in my opinion is obligatory in a location like this. I tried to make this building the largest and it was, but let's not anticipate the fact. After building the walls, roof and other necessities things, I decided to leave this building and add decoration and details later, because now I have no idea what can I add. And I feel like building things by force is a bad idea, so we will come back to this later. Here I add a simple tower, which is very similar to one tower in castle, and this tower has defensive task. I think it looks cool when there is one or more guard posts in the city. This gives the impression that location is more well kept, and let's not hide that it greatly affects the immersion and feeling of this world. My next idea was to build a slight elevation to differentiate the terrain and make the whole thing look more natural and interesting. Then I start building the inn, which is quite small. As I said, I want all these things to be more decorative. Although I have to admit that I'm starting to like it all. Immediately after completing the inn, I set about building a simple house, a more affluent person who could afford to put a property so close the castle walls. The house itself is very similar to the inn, with the difference that it is bigger and I will add a few things to it. Speaking of which, I built a simple extension to the house. So I added some uniqueness to this cottage. I did it gatehouse style, so in the future I will have a great opportunity to make a road connecting this town and the future constructions. Another idea was the market square, where I built 6 simple stalls and immediately took care of the details and decorations for it. I think it's a good idea to add a market in a place like this, because a lot of people will go this way to this castle. So traffic will be high, and therefore better opportunity to sales of goods. I also came to the conclusion here, that is, better to replace the stone ground with a more dirt one. Be honest, I don't know how to call it exactly. I have to say, but every town, village, etc. should have a blacksmith. There is always something to repair, so it could not be missing in this place. The blacksmith's house is really small and simple. His forge is really similar, but in my opinion, smaller buildings are as necessary as bigger ones. Not everyone can afford to build big mansions. Since I mentioned bigger buildings, right next to it, I built the house of some very influential and wealthy person who can afford to build a huge house in this area. I also tried to build this house in a custom shape. Recently I really like building slanted house. They looks really cool, and what do you think about slanted house? Or maybe do you prefer simple shapes? As for the things I liked, recently I completely fell in love with creating roofs with oak logs or strip spruce logs or strip dark oak logs. These roofs just looks great in my opinion. The time has come to replace stone for dirt, and I must say, brown color looks better than grey here. Right now I start to build a simple house, which I don't know yet what function it will have, but there will definitely be something for it. If we want to create a sense of the real world, we must remember to add a few wells, because the inhabitants must get their water from somewhere. After that, I added 2 simple farms animals, because there will definitely be people who will want to have farm animals for their own use. Here I decided to create a very non-standard house with a strange shape, to diversify this world a bit and show that not everything is perfect. I don't know why, but I want to make a bakery out of it. And this is the time when I go back to the first building, and I think it's the right time to take care of the all decorations and details of this warehouse. Speaking of which, I should start this operation all over this place. So let's just do it. I admit that, as always, I spent here for a long time to take care of the all minor things. In my opinion, it's also important to balance the colors, so that the overall look of the town is pleasing to the eye and not look like a collection of one big color. My advice for decorating is simple. Just spend some time here and add a few simple things that won't draw much attention than the buildings themselves, but will also be a great roads filler. As you can see, the exterior part of this town is done. It's not a big town. I would call it a breezy little town more, but I think I have managed to balance the colors and types and size of buildings well here, which is why I really like this place. I think this is a good time to ask you what do you think about this new series, and what do you think about it? Alright, that's enough sightseeing, we will have more opportunities, but now we have still got the interiors to do. I must admit that lately I have started to pay more attention to the interiors I do, and it gives me more pleasure than before. I have noticed myself that my interiors make more sense lately, and not just like stuff with random stuff. But being completely honest with you guys, I still think there is a lot of thing to improvement in this regard. I hope that from the project to project they will get better and better, same as my next Giant buildings. Here I have one more question for you. Do you prefer big time-lapse and very fast ones, or maybe more smaller project where I show you more details during them? Anyway, the town is finished and it's time for me to show you around. Initially, we have a gate and 2 smaller rooms, which I decided to use as small warehouses because of the more limited space here. Moving on, we have stalls that offers a lot of different things, so just pick and choose one. But going back, we have one of the larger wells here at the moment. The tower that cannot be reached and a simple pen for pigs right next to it. Heading home, I had a simple, small yet tidy house, which in my opinion turned out the best of all in this town. Going upstairs, we will come to a simple bakery with nothing special except for a very strange shape of this building. And right next to it, we have a really narrow inn, where is not quite space here, so you have to order takeaways more, but as I mentioned, the appearance is more important to me than usability. Going straight, we will get to the upper part of the warehouse. The beginning is the office affairs and the office itself. The second part is the space for the more exclusive things. And the last segment is the place for the transshipment and temporary storage of goods. Walking through the market square, we have a view of the warehouse, which looks great from this perspective. But more importantly, there is also another well. Nice well. Behind the well itself we have a simple decorations, nothing special be honest. But we have a beautiful view of the sea with the sea breeze. Going to the warehouse we have chaos and clutter, which I was specifically tried to achieve. Very much the placement of all these things reminds me a lot of real warehouse. And shows that there is a lot of traffic here, so there is no need to tidying up these things too much. At this point I will also add the cobweb looks great as fishing nets. In this small, simple house I decided to create a house of some master who makes flags or banners. And here too the mess was planned. Of course we can't forget about our blacksmith with a small house and equal small forge, but everything looks neat. The last stop is our spinning cow. I'm kidding. There is another house, and when we enter it, we can immediately feel that it belongs to some rich and influential person who can afford such as goods. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the all patrons and memberships on my channel. Take care everybody.